Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. It's been a long way. I'm coming from Mars. We're in 2084. I'm a bit old, but it's fine. Thank you, Madines, for welcoming me here. I'm really excited to be on this stage. It's been a while. I mean, I left to Mars like, what, 35 years ago? Well, it's a good occasion for me to explain to you what happened, the big crisis we went through in 2051. Whoa, yeah, long time ago. I'm really glad to be here. I'm going to explain. But I guess if you give me a bit of time, I'll explain what happened. And we'll start from 2015. I think the first episode. It's in 5 episodes, if you can stay here for 5. So, back in 2015, I was living in London. That was before shit hit the fan, basically. We were still optimistic about the technology as a new revolution. Brexit, Cambridge Analytica, Trump, you name it, didn't happen yet. So we were very optimistic about technology. And at that time, there were meetups, hackathons every night in London. I was going to them. I was participating. It was fun. It was fun, and that's where I got to meet Mike Butcher. I don't know, those of you who are like maybe 75 years old or more might remember. Are you 75 or more in 2084? Good. You remember Mike Butcher, the editor of TechCrunch, the leading magazine, newspaper on technology online? Well, this chap, I met him in a meetup, and he was always on new trends, getting the community involved into entrepreneurship and getting new entrepreneurs in tech pitched to him. And one of those regular nights in London, he tweeted something unusual. He tweeted a picture about refugees. And I'm sure you all remember that picture, for those of you who are my age or a little bit younger. You remember that picture of that baby on the beach? That dead body, face down. That picture got onto the headlines, and for the first time, it's not the first time that a baby was dying on our shores, but surprisingly, it was the first time that we woke up to the reality of people dying onto our borders. And that night, when Mike tweeted, "Why is the technology world, that industry that says we're disrupting the people's lives, we're making the world a better place, not so interested in disrupting the lives, or at least changing the lives of the people that that needed it the most?" And so he tweeted that, he created a group called Techfugees, which I became CEO of. Techfugees meant technology, refugee, contracted together. And the idea was to create a community of technologists that were interested in putting their skills and creative thinking into solving one of our biggest challenges to come. So what happened is I got involved, called Mike, came to the conference, hackathon, 300 people showed up. And then it was, in 9 months, 25 countries covered with hackathons. Everybody was calling to create those hackathons and new solutions. Now, Mike was wise, and he called me to help him. He called me by the shoulder and said, "Josephine, I need your help to structure that movement, because that creative mess will die if we don't structure it and make it something more sustainable." So I knew after 30 hackathons and a lot of prototypes that enormous creative thinking, that energy needed to change and needed to pivot. So in 2018, I made the choice to pivot Techfugees into something that was not just hackathons. That had to be something that was from an organization that was volunteer-run and event-led. We had to move into an organization that was impact-driven and sustainable. That was a big challenge, because when you got to VCs or the tech community and you said, "I want to help refugees with technology," great, you're a charity, here, donation. But not big investment, not big thinking. And if you go to the NGOs, they'd say, "Oh, wow, yeah, this is a bit gadgety. I mean, the refugees don't have smartphones. Well, let me tell you what. In 2015, 93% of refugees had smartphones when they arrived on our borders. And today, well, in 2015 by then, 87% of refugees were living in places where they had 2G and 3G networks. So we had to fight that challenge of perception that refugees were poor and not really useful or talented. And we got lucky. We got lucky in 2018 and 2019 in two big ways. The first one, thanks to our hackathons and the engineers, part of those hackathons, went to champion us within their companies. So we got people from Le Bon Coin and Schibsted, the Norwegian company leading in marketplace at that time, and Google for startups to support us very early on, believing that what we were doing had a future. The second thing that happened, and some of you might remember, we got Trump elected, the US removing themselves from the COP21. We got Nicolas Hulot resigning. We got people in the street fighting for climate justice. And one thing that happened is the European election in 2019 got some extreme right parties rising, and some yellow vests got in some seats. But surprisingly, what we got is a lot of green parties rising. And that sudden consciousness in 2018, 2019, of the fact that climate change was not tomorrow, it was now, that was being decided. That sudden consciousness of people that we need to invest in now for the future really helped us in some way. Because first, we got 200K from CEOs of tech, the tech community, in one day on World Refugee Day. Second, we got for the first time a bit of money from the EU, because of the Green Parties elected, to pilot and test in 3 major cities our technology. The 10 years that unfolded were growth for Techfugees, from 2020 to 2029, golden years for me. We got to become a community of more than 2,000 refugee fellows that were training other refugees on how to use technologies. We got, on our platform online, our community of Techfugees people, we got 10,000 refugees every day logging on, accessing services across the world. And more importantly, we followed and accelerated 50 projects, technology projects, to deliver health, social inclusion, education, employment, and information to refugees. That was 2029. We were on a good growth, just funded by private sponsors and donors, and yet nothing was changing in terms of politics. Sadly, there was this limitation that governments still thought if you help refugees, you help the extreme right rise. You lose votes. And that was before the drama. The drama that we knew was going to happen anyway. Some of you will remember, more people of you will remember. We got the Danube to flood regions, to swell. 4 million people across Romania, Bulgaria, Serbia, Hungary, gone, had to relocate, evacuated. 4 million, like this. And the places that were flooded could not be inhabited for the next 5 years. So we had to relocate those people. Pictures, TV screens on your channels, what you would see, people on roads, walking with their phones and their bags and their kids. It reminded people that 15 years ago we saw the same pictures in 2015, Syrian refugees. But this time was us, Europeans. And there was one picture that came out on all headlines. It was this baby dead, remembering Alan 15 years ago again, but that was a European baby this time. Things completely changed. That's when, instead of spending, at that time it was 1 billion into surveillance and monitoring our borders, and putting on planes the migrants back and giving money to Libya, Syria, well, not Syria, Libya, Turkey. This 1 billion that we were putting into borders, we put it in helping the refugees that we had in Europe. And that was the start when we got some money from public grants to help those 4 million European climate refugees. I was proud. And I was even prouder to see that finally the governments were getting it, that we need to invest because it's not, the refugees are not outside of our borders, they are right now. And it's a story for all of us. So we got big contracts. We grew from a company of 150 to 1,000 people. We got to use a lot of technology that we had previously used with Syrian and Afghan refugees. We helped a lot of people access information with immediate translations. And what I'm mostly proud of is to the 4 million climate refugees in Europe, we were instantly able to provide health records, digital health records, so they could access health assistance everywhere. But, you know, you don't stop human flaws, and history repeats itself. We're in 2039. I got this call from the UN Secretary General to open the General Assembly. I was honored. But while I'm doing this, a new company started in China. And a new way of thinking about migrants happens at government level. Now that everybody's moving because of climate change and that migration can't be stopped, governments start wanting to select who comes in, who comes out, and try to make intelligence through artificial intelligence of who's coming to their borders and how to triage, to select. Loyal to our values and ethical principles as Techfugees, we said no to any personal information provided to governments, and we said no to triage and selection by age, sex, gender, whatever you call it. We said no. We said we'll help the refugees and keep on helping people have dignity and access services that they should, by their rights, access. But it was not the point of view of China and of Chinese enterprises. So a Chinese competitor called Big Bao in 2041 got on the market. And that was the start of a tough time for me. That was the start of a tough time because what I have thought all my life for no discrimination to people wherever they're born started to fade away. Big Bao copied everything of our technology except our ethical standards. And so what they added, oh, they were cheaper also, and that helps. What they added was a feature where you can select to know and to get to know the age, the sex, the credit scoring of the refugees, their education, and also some psychological tests they had taken. You could get most of the information you want to select. As people embarked onto having cheaper services and going into unethical ways of attracting migrants, I started losing faith, starting really losing faith and money. We lost government contracts. Chinese were getting them all. It was a really tough time. Really tough time. But, so what I did, as I do always, when I'm in trouble, I called Mike. Remember Mike Butcher, the editor of TechCrunch? An hologram appeared, because at that time you didn't do Skype calls anymore. You just had holograms. And I said, Mike, look, I think my time is over. I haven't been able to win that fight. They're gone for cheaper contracts. And Mike said, look, Josephine, and thank him for that. Look, Josephine, you've always tried your best and it's okay, but this time you need help. Stop believing that you're a CEO, that you're the leader, that you don't need anyone else. You can just be like the one helping everyone. No. You need the community right now. And so what you're going to do is you're going to call on the Techfugees community of engineers across the world that have helped you for the last 30 years. And you're just going to do a hackathon and go back to day one. Do a hack on Techfugees, on the company, on the organization, and call on people to organize something better, a better product, to fight the Chinese winning those contracts. And so we did. 2049, I remember, we started this project called Ellis, as the memory of Ellis Island. And we call on a virtual hacker room. Everybody was on VR sets. Well, it was not like those big VRs at that time. It was just a chimp here. Everybody in the room, we had 3,000 participants spanning the 35 years of Techfugees around. And we started hacking, like, what way can we create something better? 9 months later, we had a solution. With those 3,000 people, we had built a Trojan horse virus to completely wipe out the whole database of the Chinese Big Bao. I know it's really not ethical to hack your competitor, but at the same time, they were doing something unethical. They were completely putting people's scores, and for generation, you'd be a refugee. Not only are your kids, your grandsons, and your grand-grandsons. Everybody was to get a score even before they were born. And so we did. One day we sneaked in, put the Trojan horse virus. It wiped out the whole data and made everyone equal on that system. The Chinese freaked out. Everybody got freed. Everybody was able to, again, be equal. So that's the good part of the story, is that we were able to fight it. Now, the bad part of the story is, and that's the reason why I ended up on Mars, is that I got the Chinese mafia after me and some governments. So all I did was call Elon Musk, and we went onto Mars. Kind of became a refugee on the planet. And the surprise was that when I arrived there in 2051, big surprise, nothing was made to welcome refugees like me. So what do you think we did? Well, easy. We started the Mars-fugees. And that's when it started all over again, to have rights for refugees everywhere, not just on our planet, but everywhere in the universe. And before I finish, je vais le faire en français. Parce que c'est bien marrant, j'ai essayé de vous décrire un petit peu, de m'y prendre au jeu de cette histoire de 2084. C'est un exercice excitant, effrayant, difficile. Il y a 3 messages dans l'histoire que je viens de vous conter, que j'ai essayé de vous conter. Premier message, la migration a été, elle est, elle sera. C'est un fait. On n'a pas à être pour, on n'a pas à être pour être contre. Et d'autant plus avec le changement climatique, comme je vous l'ai articulé, les murs ne feront rien contre un tsunami ou contre des grosses tempêtes. Rien. Deuxième chose, la tech n'est qu'un moyen. On le sait très bien qu'elle n'est pas une solution. N'attendez pas la machine qui va nous faire découvrir l'éthique. On peut décider aujourd'hui de faire de l'éthique dans la tech. Pourquoi ne le fait-on pas? Troisième chose, et dernière, c'est n'attendez pas qu'il y ait des inondations au Danube et que ce soit nous, les réfugiés, pour vous sentir concernés. Parce que ce sera trop tard. Et sur une plus joyeuse note, je voudrais vous dire 2 choses. Première chose, c'est que, comme il y a 60 ans, quand on découvrit l'espace et qu'on faisait des grandes explorations et qu'on découvrait que la planète était un lieu unique, presque un accident heureux, cette planète bleue au milieu du noir. Les prochaines découvertes nous feront redécouvrir cette réalité qu'on est vraiment un accident heureux et qu'il faut protéger cette planète. Et n'oubliez jamais que l'histoire de l'homme avec un grand H, elle a commencé par une migrante africaine qui s'appelait Lucie. Vraiment. Alors, la tech, elle n'est que le reflet de ce qu'on est. Et en 2084, elle ne sera vraiment que ce qu'on a rêvé d'être. Vraiment. Alors, je nous souhaite de rêver de beaucoup d'humanité. Merci beaucoup.